I think it is important in where we're going as a team. You know, the Matt Chapmans, the Matt Olsons, the Chad Pinders, you know, guys like that that are now here. And as uncomfortable as a lot of these trades have been the last few years, we're going to be better for it. You know, the Dustin Fowlers and Caprillions and, you know, Barrettos and Mateos, and we've traded some popular guys that you know, it has been hard. It's certainly been hard on me. It's been, you know, hard on our fan base. But I think this is the year, starting last year, that we turned the corner. It's important that we have guys in Oakland on our team that take pride in being Oakland A's. And you saw it 3 years ago with the teams that we had back then. These guys really love being Oakland A's. They love being here in Oakland. In the past couple of years, we've kind of had to have some transients, some guys that are here for a year or so on their way somewhere else, to kind of hold the fort down before we brought in this younger group of guys that you're going to see at the end of last year and now going forward. So I'm as excited about this team as I've been in quite some time. You know, 3 years ago or so, it's been a difficult transition, but we feel like we're in a pretty good spot going forward here now. You know, you saw what Matt Olson did, 20-some home runs in less than a half a year. Jed Lowry, who's been with us now. We have some key veterans too that we feel like are important to us and important to these younger guys. Jed, Marcus Simeon, who's at shortstop, went to Cal, Bay Area guy too. It's always nice to have the local guys that take pride in being on this team as well. Matt Chapman at third is going to be a star. Came up and, you know, both ends of it, offensively, defensively. He's a leader. And takes a lot of pride in wearing the Oakland A's uniform. You know, in the outfield, Chad Pinder came a long way last year for a guy that's basically an infielder, is now playing in the outfield. Probably do a little platooning with Matt Joyce. Chris Davis is our DH. He loves being an Oakland A as well. We traded for Stephen Piscotti, who's a Bay Area kid too, from St. Louis. He's going to be in the outfield for us too. We're really excited about the nucleus that we're putting together right now, and I think from this point forward, it gets better and better as we go along. So as we go to spring training here, we start up on the 14th. You'll see a lot of these guys in Fan Fest on Saturday, and then everybody's off to Arizona, and I know everybody's really excited about this. When we left last year, we had a conversation on the last day of the season, you know, about where this thing's going. And I know everybody was excited about getting back, and this is kind of the start of it this week with Fan Fest and so forth, and we're really looking forward to getting going this season, and I think we're going to put a product on the field that you guys are going to be proud of. So that's a little bit of the rundown on the team, and I'll open up for whatever questions and answers anybody has. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mark. You know, it's exciting to hear that you're going to you always
Okay, so it's true, we have a lot of exciting new young players out in the field, but you have a whole, I think they call it pitching, right?
Yeah, I left out the pitchers, didn't I? I got so wrapped up in our younger position players that I forgot to add the pitching. We feel like we have quite a bit of depth, but I'll take the question here.
Well then, so the question I would ask is, do you have depth that you can talk about right now? And is there a possibility that we're looking at trying to acquire at least someone, maybe not number one, of course, but
right,
number two or number three, and maybe a stopper somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. And, you know, the pitching's been a problem for a little bit, and you know, Billy and David do a really good job in, you know, acquiring players that we're able to acquire. You know, we can't go out and sign the top free agents, so you know, we have to find more diamond in the rough type of guys that we feel like have either had a down year and can bounce back, or some younger guys with, you know, with a better part of the career ahead of them. So, you know, going into the offseason, we knew we were going to have to bolster the bullpen. And we felt like at the end of last year, Chris Hatcher and Blake Trinan really did a good job for us in the 8th and 9th innings. But we needed to have some more depth, because we do have some young starters, and they probably don't eat as many innings as some of the veteran starters do. So you know, we made a trade. We traded Ryan Healy, which was a difficult trade to make, but we brought back what we thought was a good pitcher. We brought in Yusmeiro Petit, who was with the Giants. I had him in Arizona years before. So the first two deals we made were the Pagan deal for Healy and signed Yusmeiro Petit to give us some depth in our bullpens. Daniel Colon did a nice job last year as a lefty. We're still looking for maybe another left-handed reliever right now. As far as the starters go, Kendall Graveman and Sean Manaea are going to have to pitch like, you know, top of the rotation type guys. And, you know, Kendall's a little farther along his career than Sean, but Sean's got a terrific upside to him. I think Sean's a guy that can pitch number 1 or 2 and at some point in time. And then we have, you know, we have the Jarrell Cottons and Paul Blackburns and Daniel Gossett's, and, you know, we do feel like we have some depth. Maybe not some names that you've heard of, but depth's going to be important for us because, you know, every year we start out with 25 and we end up using upwards of 45, 50 guys every year. So whether it's injury, whether it's performance-based, we need to have quite a bit of depth. And it's important that this depth is going to have to show up. As far as looking for another starter, I think we're always looking. Again, we probably are not going to have the highest payroll this year, but there may be some sneaky deals out there coming in towards spring because the free agent market really has not heated up the way a lot of these guys have thought, and maybe toward the end we can probably maybe get a bargain. But going into spring right now, I'm pretty comfortable with the group we have. It's just not a lot of household names yet as far as what we're looking at on the pitching staff.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for your service. I was just curious, what's it like traveling 3 or 4 months a year with a bunch of 20-year-olds? What are the plans do off the field?
Yeah, I sit in the front of the plane. I don't pay much attention to it. If it gets a little loud, then I'll send somebody else back there. But you know what? What's that?
How do they spend their off time in the world?
Well, there isn't a lot of off time. You know, we play 162 games in roughly 180 days. And being on the West Coast, we're traveling to the east. I mean, the only short trip we have really is to Anaheim. If you're in the middle of the country, your trips are an hour, hour and a half. You know, everything we have, Houston and Texas in our division, and they're 3.5 hours away. So most of our off days we're traveling, and, you know, our guys get to the ballpark early at 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon to try to prepare for games, and there isn't a ton of off time, but we do spend a lot of time in the plane. And I have gotten better earplugs and earphones every year because the music didn't bother me as much as when I was a little bit younger, but it seems a little bit more now. So we do have a good group of guys, though. They don't need a lot of lassoing, so to speak, too much on the planes, at least at this point.
Bob, thank you for being here. It's great to have you here. We were thrilled with Dave Cavill when he was here 6 months or so ago about the enthusiasm and leadership that he's bringing to the stadium search.
Right.
But my question of you is, moving around with 7 teams during your career had to be a very disruptive thing, I would think. Talk a little bit about that experience and what the challenges to that were.
Yeah, well, I was so good, I figured I'd let everybody have me for a year or so. You know, for a guy like me that wasn't an everyday player, I was always trying to find the best fit for me. And, you know, a lot of times, a guy that wasn't an everyday player maybe got paid a little bit more by some of the clubs that were in contention and so forth, and had a little higher payroll. Therefore, I was, Yankees, Red Sox, White Sox for a little while, Orioles and so forth. But you know what, if I had to do it over again and I could stay in one place, unless it was here in the Bay Area, I really enjoyed it. You know, every year, my wife and daughter and I would, wherever we went, whether it was Baltimore, New York, wherever, we would always find a place in the city and experience the city. We never really went out into the suburbs because we really wanted to get a feel for that part of the country. And talk about an education. I mean, you get to move around, go to different cities, and live that type of lifestyle, and find out the flavor of the different cities and so forth. It's an education in its own. So, it was probably more because I wasn't as good as I would have liked to be, that I had to move around a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think in my career later on, certainly coaching and managing, I think I benefited by it.
Thank you. Managed both divisions, the DH, which is your preference?
That's a good question. I like the fact that there is a difference in the two leagues. I do. Especially when you get into interleague. I think actually they should flip it. That when we play a team in interleague that's from the National League in our ballpark, I think our pitcher should hit there. And if we go, to a National League ballpark, I think they should flip it as far as the DH, just to, give the fan bases a little different look. I like both styles, is why I have a tough time answering. When I was in the National League, I would have told you, the National League style, because, in theory, there's a little more strategy involved, with the pitcher and so forth, and double switches. But, one of the hardest things to do as a manager is know when to take out your starting pitcher. And in the National League, that's done for you a lot. I mean, you're behind in the game, his spot comes up, you got to hit. Where in the American League, you have to know exactly when a guy is done. So there is strategy differences in the two leagues, but I think there's a little bit more in the American League than most people think because of that dynamic. You're not always hitting for your pitcher when that spot comes up. It seems like in the National League, 7, 8, 9 in the order, when you're managing, you're taking a little break. We might not score this inning, kind of saving your bullets for a little bit later, where in the American League, there are a lot of teams that, 1 through 9, it's almost as difficult at the bottom of the order as at the top of the order. So I do like the fact that there is differences in both leagues, and if it were up to me, I'd keep it this way.
Sometimes as you get to the late part of a game, you start hearing the people, you start switching pitchers a lot. And the color guys will say,
hear the people?
What'd you say? You start switching pitchers toward the end of the game on a batter by batter basis. And the people in media will say, oh, that's just doing lefty righty. But how much of that for you is lefty righty versus individual performances, batters against pitchers?
Yeah, that's a good question. And nowadays you see a lot of the lefty-righty thing based on statistical information that you get. It's tough to take your better pitchers out of the game just because you're running through one lefty, something like that. So it's more based on the personnel you have. If you have a couple of lockdown guys at the end of the game, if they're right or left, doesn't matter, you stay with them. If you don't, and we've struggled with our bullpen here the last few years, you're trying to find the best matchup you possibly can on a particular day. And a lot of it is due to availability too. A lot of people are, I think the biggest groan sometimes you'll get is take him out, as far as a pitcher when he's struggling. But when you're managing for 162 games, there are certain guys that aren't available on a certain day. And when you're behind in games, you can't use your best pitchers when you're behind in games because they might not be available the next day. So that's the difficult part of it, but it's more the makeup. I do like, I think a left-left matchup is a little bit more difficult than maybe a right-right matchup because the righties face the righties a little bit more. But it's based on personnel. And personnel, the last few years haven't been the best for us in the bullpen, therefore we're trying to create the best matchup we possibly can.
We have a mic right here.
Hey Bob, thanks for coming. Just wanted to follow up on the question about pitching, and in particular the young pitching down in the minor leagues. Maybe identify a few guys that you're excited about and how far away they are from helping the big team.
Well, we have quite a few guys that we're pretty excited about. We had a great draft last year. Logan Shore, who's a kid out of Florida. Certainly AJ Puck is probably the guy that we're going to lean on the most, and it would not surprise me if we saw him this year at some point, maybe even early sometime this year. Dalton Jeffries, who went to Cal. He just had Tommy John surgery last year, so he's probably going to be pitching at some point in time maybe halfway through the season this year. James Caprillion, who we got in the Sonny Gray trade, is going to be a terrific prospect for us too. We got Kid Lizardo from in the Washington deal, left-hander that we like as well. So there's troops coming. I mean, we have it's probably more position players in our system at this point that are here now, but the next wave is going to be pitching. And when these two groups come together, I think we have a very exciting future.
Mike somewhere?
You know, I was watching that video, they focused on 1964, and I was thinking 1964, I was 10 years old, and the Giants traded my favorite player, Orlando Cepeda. My bedroom at home was like an Orlando Cepeda museum. I bring that up.
Well, we don't trade anybody here, so you don't have to worry about that.
Precisely, you can sense where I was going with this. What can you say to the hundreds of thousands of fans that get mostly invested, right, not only the team, but to the players, especially the 10 to 12 and 14-year-old kids that are so emotionally involved with their players when you trade them? What do you say to them?
It's hard. That's a hard one. And, you know, for a number of reasons, we have to cycle out of some of these guys before we have to pay them too much, unfortunately. And hopefully, the hope is here that going forward with a new ballpark, and we're still searching for that, but we're awfully committed to Oakland, and I don't think the timeline has changed. We just have to find, you know, a different spot for it. If we get into a new ballpark, the revenue streams change significantly. And we want to keep our guys. We want to keep Matt Chapman. We want to keep Matt Olson. We want to keep the younger guys that are here right now. And so our fans can wear a jersey and know that 3 years from now they're going to still be able to wear that jersey. And that's the hardest part for me too, is you look in the stands at our place, and I'm not going to use the names, but there's some names of guys that you see jerseys from and from some of our better teams, and they're not here anymore. And that's hard. I understand that. But the focus now is trying to combat that, and with a new ballpark, and you know, hopefully being able to keep our guys because of it. Hopefully that narrative will change.
Your time for one more.
Hope always springs eternal, but what's it like for you next 2 weeks going into spring training? What's life like this week or two?
Yeah, it's hope, like you said, and everybody going into spring training has hope. And we had a couple bad years, but I think the fact that, you know, the last month I wanted everybody in my exit meeting where everybody is remember what's going on right now, and remember where this thing's going, because when we come to spring training next year, we want to hit the ground running. And you know, you go to spring every year and there's 30 teams, and it's the one time that all 30 teams think, all right, you know, we have a new start here, and we have to be confident, we have to be excited about it, and that's the case with us. But not only that, we have the talent to be excited with it. So for the first time in a couple of years, I'm as excited as I've ever been going into spring training, and can't wait to get there.